Welcome to Topline, the podcast for the best founders, operators, and investors in B2B tech. Every week, AJ Bruno, Asad Zaman, and me, Sam Jacobs, will break down what's important for you to know to be the most well-informed professionals in the market.
67% of sellers say they've watched deals slip away because they couldn't deliver the specific customer evidence their buyers needed. That's why this episode is sponsored by User Evidence, the customer evidence platform trusted by GTM teams at Gong, Ramp, Grammarly, and more. In their latest report based on findings from over 600 B2B buyers, sellers, and marketers, they reveal exactly what kind of customer proof builds trust and gets deals done. For all of the findings, download the Evidence Gap report now at userevidence.com/evidence.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Jacobs. I'm the CEO of Pavilion. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Asad Zaman, the CEO of Sales Talent Agency, and AJ Bruno, the CEO of Quotabath. And today we're going to be talking about me being attacked on social media. We're going to be talking about the latest GTM data from Iconiq and what AI native companies are doing that is different from non-native companies and even what that means. The Figma S1, which just came out, which has some incredible numbers, but also reveals some questionable accounting practices about how they are calculating net revenue retention. And finally, the war for talent and what's happening between Zuck and Meta and OpenAI, and does that have an impact on GTM? So let's get into it.
Sam, the most interesting thing you said there was the social media attack. I feel like every other week, that's what I look. If you're listening there and you're like, "Ooh, tell me more about that," and then you're like, you stop listening to the other stuff Sam was saying. I did the same thing.
I don't listen to Sam either.
Yeah. Sam, what's going on the socials for you?
Well, I a couple of days ago, there's this guy, I don't even want to say his name, but I feel obligated to. I'm not going to write about him though, but there's this guy named Clark Barron. And apparently, you know, he's a muckraker, he's a rapscallion, he's a troublemaker, and he's decided that he hates Pavilion. And he's decided that it's a messianic cult, those are his words, and that I am a cult leader. And I wrote a post about me flying to San Francisco and having dinner with a bunch of CROs as part of the soft launch for Pavilion Gold. And what I said, which I believe, right? I believe, is that nobody knows what they're doing right now. This is what we talk about every single week, that AI is changing faster than we could process it. And I was surprised at that dinner at how many well-known CROs that we all know and admire were fearful for their jobs because they felt like they'd taken the company to a certain place and they felt like the CEO might even be looking for their replacement already. And I feel like I started a company to solve exactly this problem and to help operators navigate an increasingly uncertain economic environment and in a landscape where there are no playbooks because everything's changing in the moment. So I wrote a post about it, which obviously the point of which is this is why Pavilion exists exactly for this reason. And this guy just he's got a problem with me. He's got a problem with me. And so he had written something else nasty about me. So I literally just blocked him. And then he wrote a post calling me out again. He couldn't tag me because he's blocked by me, but telling everybody that I was doing predatory marketing, that he thought that cybersecurity was the only people that invented FUD. It just shows how provincial his knowledge is. He doesn't really know anything. And that I'm sowing FUD and isn't that mean and it's unethical and people shouldn't be worrying about their jobs. And, honestly, like, you should be worrying about your job. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
You should absolutely be worried about your job.
So in his post, he says, I need to read two things out to you guys. So in his post, he says something along the lines of, he defines what you said and then says, this is predatory marketing. Let me break down the manipulation, create fear, isolate you, add urgency, position as savior. I was like, okay. So then I go on Clark's own LinkedIn, and he's the founder of a company called Burn It Down. Check this out. The first line on Burn It Down. Burn It Down is a road media platform for marketers who know the system is broken and aren't waiting around for permission to fix it. He goes on to say, psychology warfare guides for navigating toxic odds and misaligned execs. That's what we bring out. Marketing isn't broken. It's been systematically gutted by people who don't understand it, don't respect it, and sure as hell shouldn't be leading it. This platform is how we fight back.
Asad, I feel really isolated right now when you say those words.
It's also, he never offers a he never offers a vision for what he believes. It's always, I'm full of beans and he's the savior, but he never articulates what exactly his position is that we can all think of him as the savior. At any rate, I went for a walk with my dog, Mr. Abraham Jacobs, wonderful guy. And good news, the ear infection is under control.
There we go.
And I was walking with my partner, and she said, never, what is it? Never justify, don't reply. And I felt like I'm doing that on my podcast, where I control the microphone with the two of you.
I think that's what she meant, is don't reply. Definitely go on Topline and broadcast it to everyone you can.
But I don't think he listens to Topline. And if he does, he's doing exactly the thing that he's accusing me of.
Literally.
I think that's your point, Asad.
What he wrote, and then you read what he is saying about his own company, and you can't tell the difference. It's the same formula. It's create fear, isolate, urgency, position as savior. It's literally the things he wrote on his own thing. This is hypocrisy, right? Like, these are what hypocrites do. And it comes down to, I think, when people try to create companies and things aren't going well for them, and then they decide the only way to create momentum, because this is what social allows for, is if you go after somebody, people react.
Yeah.
And we've seen this, Adam Robinson and Sixth Sense and Mary Poppins with you a few months ago, and these people. And then they become irrelevant a few months later because no one really cares about what they do beyond that clickbaity post. Where's Mary Poppins today? And Clark will be just like that.
I've used the term projection a lot in my personal life lately, because one piece of it is, if someone is saying something, then I'm trying to understand where it's coming from. So I'm dealing with a lot of family stuff and just the chaos. And my wife and I were talking last night. We were at a birthday party over the weekend with a lot of family there, and in some of the stuff that was just said, I was just beside myself. And I stopped and I was like, Ange, they're just projecting their own feelings and thoughts on something. And there's selection bias, meaning like just your most recent things that you're feeling, you feel like you need to get out there. And I look at this and I'm just like, this person is just clearly projecting their own personal feelings, but they found a conduit. And honestly, Sam, to be fair to you, that's great, because they're attaching to someone who they think actually has influence in the world and who will go on Topline and talk about
100%
it. So
Clark is going to announce a community in like a week or two.
I'm going to announce something. And we'll never know what it stands for. It just stands against me, but not for anything. The last thing
I just
I'll say on this
love
topic
how
go ahead, Asad.
people feel community is such an easy business. You see, like, everybody is just like, they pop up, they do a little bit of social media, they do a little bit of this, like going after somebody and being a rebel or a pirate, and then they're like, now I've got a community. Adam Robinson has a community. Mary Poppins had a community. It's hilarious how easy they think it is. Whereas if you actually understand community businesses, they're probably one of the hardest businesses to build.
Sam has the hardest of the three of us.
100% his business
Sam
is
has the
harder than
hardest.
mine and yours. Like,
Yeah,
for
Sam
sure.
has the hardest by far. Not even a
For
question.
sure. 100%.
I wish there was like a direct correlation between difficulty and enterprise value, but unfortunately,
The things you would tell yourself 8 years ago.
there's no gold stars in business. Good job, my boy. You're doing the hardest one. The last thing I'll say before we move into the docket is I meant everything that I wrote. I talk to people all the time. I talk to CEOs. I talk to executives, and people are anxious and people are worried about their jobs. That's just true. And I don't think it would be helpful. First of all, I think if you're feeling like that and you see a post like that on social media, maybe it gives you some reassurance that it's not just you and that you're not alone. And the second thing is, I don't think it's doing anybody any good by sugarcoating stuff. Like I think we were talking offline, we're in this platform shift, and there's this moment in time where you can position yourself. Look at Kyle. Norton, right? Look at somebody who has taken advantage of this moment to but to position themselves as one of the foremost experts on AI for go-to-market in the world. Because as you said, Asad, there's this window that opens up and you can jump through it and take advantage of the moment and develop the skills, or you can sit on the sideline and you can, write, nasty grams about people you don't even know. But I just think this is real. It is happening right now. And every single person I talk to, including all of us, right? All of us are like, how can I be productive and effective? How should I structure my organization? Who should have which job? I just feel like that's true. And the message that I convey is what I'm seeing. And yeah, it's a sales pitch because I run, this is the business that I run, is that people, you don't need a playbook because ChatGPT can build you a playbook in 2 seconds. What you need is to talk to other people that are doing it. And that's what community offers.
When I started my career in recruitment, SaaS was more than 10 years in. And there was this like really interesting thing where there were some companies that were willing to take people into SaaS from outside of SaaS. And I saw that. And I saw over time that appetite went away. And eventually, let's say 1 or 2 years ago, if you present somebody from hardware sales to the worst SaaS company out there, they'll be like, what the hell? So the worst company has this bar, which is the person must know SaaS. Whereas before, they had some more openness. And if you think of when we switched from perpetual to SaaS, there were no SaaS people. So there was an opportunity for a lot of people to enter. But as time goes by, you have some SaaS people. So the very best companies in that market will say, now I only want SaaS experience. And then the tier below that will say, I'm open to non-SaaS experience. I would prefer SaaS experience. I'm open to non. And then as time goes by, it just closes up. And I'm noticing this right now with AI. We have some AI companies that you would say are tier 1 AI startups. And them and their investors are like, no, we need an AI leader in marketing, in go-to-market. It's like, guys, there's 6 of them. Like, you have to be more open-minded. Exactly. Like, we just made the shift. And so, but that's where they're starting off. And this is interesting because I was talking to somebody who's considering this shift. And they were advised by a CRO, kind of like a CRO from the previous era, that don't worry, you don't have to enter the space right now. You can enter whenever you want. Sales is sales. Go-to-market is go-to-market. It's not. And you can't just enter when you want. There's a lot of change happening. If you want to enter, like, the sooner the better. And there's a lot of stuff that's happening with AI that opens up a lot of questions for people. People are anxious, and that's a fair feeling. It's kind of crazy if somebody's not feeling anxious today.
I agree. Well, I mean, I think that leads really nicely into the first topic on the docket. Asad, you were doing some research on this new Iconiq data that came out about go-to-market. So walk us through it.
There were a couple of, it's a good report. People should go and read it. I think Iconiq has done some great work in bringing this data to the market. There were a few things that stood out. The first was AI native companies under 100 million in ARR are converting 35% of leads from demo to one compared to 39% for non-AI. This flips on its head as companies achieve some type of critical mass. So when they get past 100 million, the AI native companies are winning 44% of those deals versus 33% for non-AI companies. AI native companies have very different headcount distribution in go-to-market. So they have 9% in RevOps versus 6% for non-AI companies. They have 13% of their go-to-market people in marketing versus 17%. And then from a post-sales perspective, they're investing heavily in post-sales, 31% of people in post-sales compared to 22% for non-AI native companies. And then there was this other point that we can say and then come back to, which is channel and partnerships right now in the ecosystem drove less than 20% of revenue for companies across all stages from no revenue to 250 million in ARR, but went up to 29% for companies that are past 250 million in ARR. So those were the standout points. Sam, when you look at this, I think the most interesting thing here is the headcount distribution. What does this tell you when you hear these numbers? What does this make you think?
Well, there's this, to your point about headcount distribution, Asad, AI native companies have 9% of go-to-market headcount in RevOps compared to 6% for non-AI native companies. Also, they have 13% in marketing versus 17% for non-AI. And for me, what emerges is similar to the idea that literally we were just talking about as it relates to people that are positioning themselves for this platform shift. What I think of and hear when you share that data is there's this increasing demand for AI savvy technical talent, which is going to be in RevOps. And I think they're probably categorizing GTM engineers and AI engineers and the people that are responsible for AI transformation. They're probably in the RevOps function. Certainly, Josh Carter for Pavilion is in demand generation nominally, but also, to a certain extent would be classified in RevOps at some point. And so I think like the nature of the organizations of the future are changing, and there will be more concentrated orchestration and that is driven by technical talent in the future, and less individual contributors that are performing specific tasks. And we see that all over the place, people talking about the individual marketers that are running one campaign or one specific channel are probably going to go away in favor of people that are orchestrating multiple campaigns across multiple channels. And I think that is going to redound to the benefit of technical talent. So I think this is, again, to the point, I just think it underscores the point that we literally just made, which is these windows open at moments in time, and you have 3, 4 years, 5 years around which you can refashion yourself as an AI marketer, as an AI engineer, as a go-to-market engineer, as somebody that understands all of the different tech and how it interconnects and can orchestrate the relationships therein. And then the window's going to close. And to your point, Asad, because you're in recruiting, and then there's going to be people saying, okay, well, now we need people with 3 years of experience. Right now, there is no such thing as people with 3 years of experience. There will be soon. So that's what I think it's the act of individual contributor, which is probably what Aaron Levy talks about all the time, is going to probably be replaced in many functions by agents and by AI. But the act of quality control and orchestration will be taken on by humans still, and I think they'll probably sit disproportionately in RevOps.
I mean, Sam, you used the word orchestration 3 times when you were talking right there, which is what stuck out to me. And I think that's, well, there's a few things on that, but I actually think there's a lot of intention behind it. Because the idea of orchestration is what I see as the main driver to the headcount differences, Asad. One part, AI companies, or a lot of them, have relied on virality moments in time, so word of mouth. So the marketing aspect of it is not an afterthought. It's just the top of the funnel is just viewed in demand gen differently. These are also less mature organizations, most likely. So their demand gen and product marketing are probably still being formed at the founder-led level. And therefore that makes sense. What I actually found most interesting was the RevOps piece to it, 9%. That's a lot of headcount. I mean, if you have an organization of 50, you're talking about 4 headcount dedicated to RevOps.
Yeah, that is a lot.
And I think that's probably a little bit of a misnomer. My sense on that is it goes back to orchestration, and it goes back to this idea of who's managing the agents and the agentic opportunities, and that therefore there are people in the background that are basically an RevOps leader, but actually the SDR leader. Like that's what we have at QuotaPath. Our AI ops leader is actually our SDR leader.
I love
right
that.
now.
That's such a good
and so
point.
that's the major difference there.
Can we what productivity are you seeing from your SDRs right now, AJ? Are you using AI SDR tools? Are you seeing, I remember talking to, Brian Litvak, who said they went from 15 SDRs to 4 SDRs, but increased pipeline generation so that they were more productive with 4 people, and they were using, some of these AI components. Are you seeing productivity from the SDR function?
Yeah, we have gone from 5% outbound SDR last year to over 15% of our pipeline. And we've actually increased our inbound pipeline by 35% year over year overall. So yes.
and your inbound pipeline, and you're connecting those dots, because your point is when SDRs are out there sending a ton of emails and making a ton of phone calls, they are doing outbound marketing effectively that will show up, and then they see a retargeted ad and they see some other thing, and then they come in and they are classified as inbound, but you view those investments as complementary.
Exactly right. And I think that there's a lot of this is the challenge with the traditional marketing mix, was that attribution was viewed in like this way of like fighting between sales and marketing, where I think AI and ops have been able to bring those together, and they work complementary much better today. And so I don't think about it in terms of attribution, because it's all at this very top of the funnel and conversation. And so that number on the demo to close, those numbers are in line. We're actually a little bit lower. We're at 30% our demo to close. So the problem there, I think, is still that what metrics a company considers a demo to close. I put less credence on that. Those numbers, Asad. The headcount is actually really interesting, especially the deltas between some of those numbers.
How many SDRs do you have?
0.
I thought you just said.
We're all agentic, all AI. We don't have any SDRs. We have an AI. We have Brandon actually manages all the agents.
He is the SDR.
He is the SDR. Well, one, if you want to say that's.
And they're doing outbound.
Yeah, it's all outbound.
What tool are you using?
Well, there's a bunch of tools that we're using right now. Clay was where we started, of course, and with Apollo Data enriched, but we've actually are now using Dust for some of these to manage some of the agents and all of the flows. But it's a lot of testing right now. We actually have an AI quota path Slack channel that every week, every day actually, is just posted with new and different tools that our team is trying out to test this. And then Brandon will curate that at the end of the week. And for the next week, we'll experiment with different things. And then our start of the week, we have an AI quick win that we will showcase to the team and like talk through.
That's so cool.
Is the fact that you've figured this out, right? So you have 0 SDRs.
I figured out none of this, by the way, Asad. I have to give my team all the credit for that, but it is I've allowed the environment to experiment.
You created the environment for it.
What I did that was a major point was at the beginning of the year, I said, by the end of the year, we need to be an AI first company. What will it take? Okay, first off, Brandon, you're no longer RevOps. Your title is now AI Ops. And there was a lot of pushback on that. Brandon didn't have an issue with that. Some others did. And then I just said, you know what? We have to just change our mindset as an organization around some of these things.
So now think of how attractive Brandon is in the market, right? Like Brandon now has a very unique skill set. And that unique skill set is already like, if a year from now you have a bunch of AI companies that are starting up, they'll want a Brandon versus somebody who is going to learn once they enter the space. And that's, I think, the most important thing that professionals need to understand is that you can't wait to develop the skills. Like this is, if you want to have a fulfilling career moving forward, this is the world and you have to adjust to it, because there are already people that have adjusted to it. So they have a comparative advantage against any SDR leader or any RevOps person that can't do what Brandon did, can't drive 15, 20% of pipeline just using agents. That he has an edge now. And more of them are going to come up. So anyone that's kind of dragging their feet is going to be at a significant disadvantage. And we've spoken previously about the cultural difference in these organizations, and that takes getting used to. And you can see this in the data. They want less human beings in these teams. Most of, I look at the marketing one because I think about marketing a lot these days. And these companies have really lean marketing teams, but are driving more attention than any startup of that sort has ever driven before, doing things and saying things that people used to think were impossible to achieve. So if you said virality is our strategy, for a while, I remember hearing a lot of marketers be like, you can't optimize.
That's not scalable. You're not scalable. That's not a thing.
Like, you can't optimize.
That was viewed, CMOs would come in and be like, oh, I'm taking all the things the founders are doing that aren't scalable and actually have to create real programming and marketing around it. It always frustrated me.
Optimize for virality. Like, it turns out.
I'm going to use a real example here. Topline. when we first started Topline, and I pitched it to our marketing team, and it was a much bigger marketing team with CMO, and nothing against them. They were
Your
fairly
point
negative.
is no longer.
Yeah.
They were
Well,
negative.
and
Those people are no longer with us.
and this is part of the challenge, though, is like you have these visions, oh, the founder, shiny object, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is that you see these organizations, what is true at all of these organizations, Asad? They have founders that are willing to take a risk, that are like, don't care. DGAF. Like that's like,
It
we're
is.
just going to go do it.
I could not more strongly agree that sometimes, especially exactly what we're talking about, this podcast, this media company that we're building, and you feel sometimes a resistance from people, and I feel sheepish, telling the board, we're going to start a podcast. And they're like, what are you talking about starting a podcast? You're like, I don't know how to convey this to you in a way that will make me sound credible, but I am telling you that if you listen to Topline, you would know that distribution is a moat, and that like the times they are changing, and that you have to lean in. And every single person I'm seeing that's talking about founder brands, I think fundamentally the power, what does AI do for the well-positioned individual? It makes the best better. And it is an enhancer. Now this guy, what's his name? Brendan or Brandon? I don't want to get it wrong. You're a RevOps guy. That's an SDR.
Oh, Brandon Smith. Agent Smith.
There we go. Mr. N.
Oh, that's a great name for him. Agent Smith.
I know. I told him that as soon as we were told it, AI Ops, your name would be Agent Smith, and he rolled his eyes. Every time I talk to him, it's just a bunch of Matrix gifs. That's my conversation with him.
I just think, to the point of us leaning into this, storytelling and just individual agency, whatever you want to call special people, are going to be more powerful and more at a premium than they've ever been. And these individual brands, the Sam Parrs, the Harry Stebbings, the Asad Zaman and AJ Brunos, they are going to be more powerful because everybody else is so banal. And this war for talent is so important because there are so few people that are truly positioned to take advantage of this, either by telling compelling stories and really being able to capture people's attention, or to build the tech in the first place.
By the way, Sam, I've said some cool stuff that we're doing on the AI front. I actually feel like we're behind, like really far behind. And that's my feeling. I have like a strong paranoia that I'm going to be left behind. We talked a little bit about what we were all doing in AI and how we were thinking about it last week. And it's just this constant feeling of like, oh my God, there's so much cool stuff to do. Like, how do I not get distracted?
Let me ask you this question on behalf of Mr. Burn It Down. How does feeling behind make you feel? Does it make you feel happy and elated, or does it make you feel anxious?
Anxious. And you know what? Like, I'm replaceable. Like, I could lose my job, Sam. And that's the whole point.
That's why Pavilion
name is Burn It Down. It's just like, he has no leg to stand on.
When you call it Burn It Down and you attack somebody else for doing predatory marketing,
it's so ridiculous.
Just the irony.
It's so bad. I was thinking about the Cluey. Is it Cluey or Cluey?
I think it's
Cluey.
Cluey.
I have it running right now. I can ask what its name is.
So their CMO is this young kid, 20-something-year-old, hasn't been, I don't think he's been a professional marketer anywhere, but they've generated about 1 billion impressions. And right now what they're doing is they've created about 10,000 social media accounts for places where vertical video works. And they want to deploy this. We've spoken about this UGC, user generated content campaign over there. And that's just a new skill. It's like the type of stuff that the old generation would tell you no to. And so I think you can see this delineation now happening between companies that think good marketing looks like a report that you download and give me your email so that I can then send you 1 million emails, or a webinar, versus people that are understanding that attention is about being culturally relevant and having a point of view. And you don't always, I think, have to be extremely controversial, but if you are, that will obviously get attention, and then you have to know how to convert it, because some can and some can't. But there is this like delineation that's happening right now. And I think resistance to the delineation is, I think, a short way to become irrelevant as a professional, because you're just going to miss the boat and the game will advance too far for you to catch up at that point, versus feeling a little anxious and then saying, okay, let me learn this. Like, I learned what I learned there, and so why can't I learn this? Like, why not? It's not like, I don't think that just because somebody is older they can't learn. That's not true. You just have to have an open mind to it and then do the work. But people that are taking these stances that you'll have tons of time and don't feel anxious, and I think those people are going to cost people their careers.
Are there really people that are saying, take your time, don't worry about it?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So,
I mean, I think part of the challenge is figuring out where to focus, because sometimes you're like, okay, I need to go on Bolt and build a web app this weekend. And then you come up with some prototype,
yes.
and there's a very logical response to that, which is, hey, Asad, you're the CEO of a multi-million-dollar business. I don't know that that's the best use of your time. And I think the response to that is probably, it's not about me putting a web app into production. It's about me understanding and being conversant with the terminology and the technology. Not that I'm some expert developer.
I think if you play with some of these vibe coding tools, you understand where the world is going very quickly. Like very, very quickly, because there are a lot of flaws in them, right? Like if you don't understand architecture and you're not a great developer, you'll build something, but it won't be great and won't be ready for prime time. But you'll be like, I literally on my phone app was chatting with this thing and it created this thing. And if this gets 10 times better, what does that mean for the world? Like it becomes quite clear quite quickly. And that you only get that by, I think, playing around with things. And I think you get that by spending a lot of time on Twitter, because I think it's undeniable Twitter is the epicenter.
How much time do you spend on Twitter?
I don't know how much time in a day. I would say 45 minutes to an hour, probably.
Not enough to change the name to X in your mind, though, apparently.
I don't know. You know what's okay? So that X is a word that I had a real trouble when I had a Lisp. I had real trouble with X. That's why when he named it, I was like, oh God, this is going to be so annoying. And so I stick with Twitter. But it's like weeks ahead of every other platform. LinkedIn has just gone to crap, but you have to spend time on Twitter if you want to understand what's going on.
LinkedIn, it's very interesting what's happening now, because there's Anish from Wishly is like meeting with senior executives at LinkedIn, because all these creators and influencers are so frustrated about the suppression of their reach. And, we've talked about this a little bit, but it's very strange. The concept of a follower has become like a theoretical idea, which is sort of weird, because people express a positive, direct intent to interact with you, and then you are not permitted to engage with them.
And
so when you follow people, you can't message them.
No, when you follow people, it doesn't guarantee that you'll see their content.
Oh.
These social networks, they early on will make it so that if you have 100 followers, 80 of them will see your content. Now it's like 5 will see the content. And
do you know which 5 will see it?
No, it'll be a random 5. That's why they say that if you actually want to win LinkedIn, just flood the zone, make 10 posts in a day, because they'll show to different 5. Like 50% of your audience will see your stuff. So just flood the zone rather than be like so precious about the one post of the day.
That makes the whole thing worse.
Well, that's what you have to do for them to learn a lesson, right? Because what are they doing right now? So LinkedIn is showing me posts written 3 to 4 weeks ago by people. I go to social media to know I want my finger on the pulse of what's happening in the business world. And it's like 4 weeks ago, Adam Robinson said this thing about a webinar he's doing. I'm like, what is this? This is ridiculous. It makes no sense. I think this kind of speaks to a B2B company like Microsoft trying to do social network. It just doesn't work.
Or their incentives are misaligned, or they're not, typically this stuff is they're not sure what they want to be. And as somebody that has often been not sure what he wants to be, I can empathize.
Are you ready ready to level up your go-to-market strategy for 2026? Then don't miss GTM 2025, the only B2B tech conference exclusively for go-to-market executives. Join 1,000 other revenue leaders this September 23rd to 25th in Washington, D.C. for an exclusive executive-only experience. This 3-day event is hyper-focused on connection, strategy, and execution. Expect hands-on workshops, in-depth strategy sessions, and curated opportunities to build relationships with VPs, CXOs, and founders facing the same challenges you are. You'll stress test your GTM approach, align your team, and leave with real, actionable insights from top-performing leaders. Don't miss the must-attend conference designed to help you boost go-to-market results in 2026. Visit attendgtm.com, that is ATTENDGTM.com to secure your spot today, and don't forget to use the code TOPLINE for 10% off your GA ticket.
Okay, so let's AJ, what are your thoughts on this post-sales part, actually, very quickly? They have 31% of people in post-sales compared to non-AI companies. That's a huge shift, and these aren't in CS. These are like...
What was non-AI companies?
Non-AI companies are 22%, so that's a pretty significant delta.
I think what that tells me, Asad, is that there's a lot of hype in this, like, call it PLG, call it whatever you want, in this, like, I want to vibe code, I want to use this thing. But when push comes to shove, the way you actually get enterprise value is having a post onboarding process that gets you to see the light in a commercial way. Like, look at Codium, right? Codium and Cursor, probably 1-to-1, but they were told really early by the great sales leader that lives in Italy and was MongoDB's CRO. Carlos. Told really early on, those founders were told, build an enterprise capability, like make sure you have a team that does that. And I know a lot of that team because they were former Trendkiters, actually, and they worked out of the Trendkite office in Austin, the old Trendkite office. And that's what they did. And that was a post onboarding team. You got really interested into it, but you didn't just like show up and leave. You showed up, they saw you, they saw what organization. Oh, this is a Microsoft domain. Who else could use this? And they built enterprise value around that. And I think that's what a lot of these AI first companies are seeing firsthand. And that's awesome because they're still building SaaS products. That's exactly what it is.
Isn't it interesting how in go-to-market, the biggest changes functionally seem to be happening in marketing, RevOps, and post-sales? That middle sales piece is kind of what you've always done. Like, it's not that different today. But those other surrounding pieces are very different. Let's talk about, since we're on post-sales, let's talk about Figma for a second. So there are many places you can go to get an S1 review. And you should. This will be this will probably be the biggest IPO of the year. But
that was Austin's disclaimer, by the way, that the three of us are not public market experts.
We're not S1 experts.
Well, you don't, you as a listener don't come here for public market commentary because you got plenty of other places to go. You come here for hot takes on LinkedIn's algorithm, for
Mr. Clark.
Yeah, exactly. For Mr. Burn It Down.
I just love the name Burn It Down. Okay, so there's something that really stood out in this S1, which is Figma's NDR, net dollar retention, is 132% as of March 2025. Their GDR, gross dollar retention, is 96% with a lot of caveats. One caveat is it's only measured on accounts that have $10,000 or more in spend. But then when you kind of click into the fine print, there's a lot more there. One is, so this is how they define NRR and GRR. We calculate it by starting with the ARR as of the date of measurement from all paid customers with more than 10,000 in ARR that were also paid customers with more than 10,000 in ARR as of 12 months ago. We then calculate the ARR for those customers as of 12 months prior to the date of measurement. We then divide by the current ARR. This is unique, right? This is super unique. AJ.
Well, first off, shout out to David Spitz for kind of bringing some of this to light. Appreciate this. I'm going to measure GRR by only the customers that renew. That's when I go public.
That's good. You got great GRR.
100%. It's been 100%. I hear this, Asad, and I'm like, first off, Figma is a great business. It's a fantastic business. I thought they were dead in the water last year. I didn't say it out loud because we use Figma, but when AI design became a thing and you're Figma, you're like, ooh, they're going to be left behind. But instead, what has happened, Asad, is they've brought more and more people outside of designers into Figma.
Mm-hmm.
I am a Figma user. My co-founder is a Figma user. I probably am in Figma twice a week, which may surprise.
What are you doing in Figma?
The memo that I just wrote the board, I had our designer put it in Figma, and then so that it's designed appropriately. Asad, did you read the memo that I sent a couple weeks ago from me?
Yeah.
No.
Why was that in Figma?
Because it looks so pretty. It looks fantastic.
Like any other memo I've ever read? Like, what do you mean?
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, the point being is that they've done a good job of bringing other people in. So when I hear these numbers on their NDR and they're very specific around $10,000 or whatever, it makes me question a lot of the other metrics that they're putting out there without digging into it. That said, I would expect their IPO is going to perform well.
Perform really well.
Yeah, it's going to be well. Do you think, here's a question for you guys, and you might not know the answer to this. Okay, so Adobe was going to buy them for $26 billion, right? What are they going to IPO at?
Around 20-ish, 2025.
Okay, so it's going to be a little bit of a discount from where Adobe was going to buy them.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that stuck out to me. They're 46% year-over-year revenue growth. 40
as measured by customers of a certain sort.
Yeah.
Sam.
So Asad, I'm curious, what do you see it the same way in terms of the skepticism, or are you looking at this with like, oh no, who cares about that? The other numbers is going to go.
I think it's kind of crazy, to be honest. I think Figma should go and buy like one of these lovable, bold type of companies, because I do think that as these code gen platforms get better, you'll just do a lot of the Figma stuff.
But they're going to overpay.
And Figma will become a very specific tool for designers, but a lot of the average person prototyping and all of that will happen in these other tools. And so if they want to stay super relevant long term, I think they should buy a company of that sort. I still think they'll perform really well. The stock will pop and they'll have a ton of money to go and do interesting acquisitions. But when I see something like this, it makes me think. When I try to take their side, Sam, this is what is an argument for the way they're doing it, which is that AI is going to make building things easier. And because of that, there'll be a lot of products that are out there and a lot of choice for the average customer. We are figuring distribution out through these viral campaigns. And so we know how to get a lot of attention. But obviously, we're not being that precise and specific with targeting our ICP when we're doing this marketing. This new form of marketing is much broader. So we're going to enter thousands, maybe millions of users. And then some of them will show serious intent. And others will be like how you and I maybe use Replit over a weekend, but don't stick around long term. And it's probably a healthier way to just have some signal of this is a serious customer within our ICP and look at how are we doing with them versus doing broadly. That's a form of a counter argument going around these days. Do you think that's ridiculous, or is there some sense in that?
No, that's the counter argument I was going to make before you said it. So I think what it reveals is how they think about their business. Now, what they are saying is the customers below $10,000 are not valuable to them except as upsell or expansion opportunities into this $10,000 cohort, but that their business is designed exactly as you said, Asad, around penetrating the market with a low price point product or a freemium, some kind of PLG motion that gets as many people as possible. Yes, those people pay. Don't worry about the revenue. Worry about the conversion rates from those people into the $10,000 revenue stream, and then judge us based on the $10,000 revenue stream, which if they're going to do that, they need to report ARR as only companies that pay over $10,000. So we can try, I mean, it doesn't have to be in their GAAP financial statements, but it certainly should be, how they want to think about, like they need to articulate, if they're going to do this, then they can't change the goalpost at various times. They can't report ARR without reporting the revenue stream of $10,000 plus ARR. But I think about this for Pavilion all the time. So I don't think it's like shenanigans unless you have to clearly explain it. Same thing for us, right? So we were talking about this today, and we have this, we have all of these people that are coming in and out of Pavilion as members, and we're actually looking at, possibly creating some lower price point products for exactly the reason that we're talking about right now, which is create a very big base. Now that very big base is going to have extremely high churn potentially, right? If we do this, and it will be money, and we'll certainly include it in ARR when we report the total, but we will probably say, but look at this cohort, and maybe it's Pavilion Gold, maybe it's like, this upsell motion, and we're going to probably do the same thing. Another way to do it might be, what is the member health score green? Like what is green ARR versus, and again, the whole movement is get everybody into this bucket. We say that this bucket is the valuable bucket, and let's track the movement of that bucket over time. I think that's not, that's a good strategy potentially, as long as they're reporting the $10,000 plus ARR number so that you can keep an eye on it. If it's nowhere reported, then you're just reporting this NDR number, this GRR number that you don't have any reference against, because the total ARR number of 800 some odd million is unclear to you.
Could you imagine?
A great point, because when I see this, I start asking a lot of questions, right? Like the natural instinct is, well, then what's your actual GRR? And there's just some missing pieces of information that aren't there to like tie it all together. But if they did that, like if they tie it all together, I think that's a really interesting way to look at a business, and probably where we're going, with all of this conversation we've been having about these AI companies and how they are trying to do marketing. It is probably the better way to look at a business.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if?
Go ahead, AJ.
Could you imagine if Topline was around during WeWork's S1 filing in the
community
episode?
Adjusted even
the S1 filing and the fun we would have had during that episode.
I mean, I do remember I walked into a company 15 years ago, and I was looking over the shoulder of the member success manager, and she was talking to me at length about regretted churn. And I was like, what do you mean regretted churn? She's like, well, some people go out of business, and some people we realize they're just not a good fit. So of regretted churn, we have like a 95% renewal rate. I'm like, oh dear. Well, that's not.
They do this in talent, by the way. You'll speak to some VP of HR and they'll be like, our regretted churn was only 2%. I was like, yeah, but your whole turnover rate was 35%. So let's talk about that. That's a bit of
well, actually, Asad, you bring up a good point, though, because I know in a lot of recruiting agencies, if the person doesn't stay for a year or 6 months or whatever, there's like a clawback. There's what?
You replace them for free. So they buy an insurance policy and you. Yeah.
Do you report that differently at all?
No, so we track that very closely. Ours for executive search is under 1% over the last 24 months. Historically, over 18 years, our business averages out to 3%. So we're very low.
That's super low. So it's like, it is like a clawback then for like a write-off almost situation that would be in SaaS versus like you have to report it out because it's churn in a different way, like what we're talking about.
Luckily, I don't have a board, so who am I reporting to? I tell myself what it is.
I mean, I hate to, and I appreciate what Ryan said in our Slack channel. Everybody should join the Slack channel if you haven't already. And Ryan Burke's a great contributor. But it does come back to this concept of quality of revenue, right? Like it really does. What Figma is saying, literally, not all revenue is created equal.
Yes.
And that's not really all ARR. No. Or it is whatever you want to call it. But like the things here's the revenue stream that you can count on. It's people that pay us more than 10K. Yeah. And I think when we hear about companies going from 0 to 40, 0 to 50, 0 to 500, if they don't provide that level of clarity, it really isn't clear how much can we count on that revenue as ARR. And again, this is where I'm a broken record on it, but it's just funny. you get a consistent definition, you get a core definition, and you establish benchmarks. And then people find all kinds of ways to co-opt the nomenclature without co-opting the consistency of the definition, so that they can present, performance that it's not like it's bad performance. It's just not quite clear that it's telling the full story.
I think
what's the best way then to report quote unquote revenue quality? Is it your ideal customer profile in terms of like, here's the types of customers that fit the cohort? Is it over time? Like, are revenues getting higher quality over time because they're renewing? Like, what would be the best way to do that?
I think, and again, I think you have to explain your funnel pretty clearly, because I think fundamentally, if you have, and you only do this if you have high churn, if you have perfect churn and perfect NRR and perfect GRR, then you don't really have to draw a distinction. But if you have a business where the point of it is getting people in at some low price point when you know that they're going to be churning, but the motion is to get them in so that you can upsell them into other things, then I think you just have to explain that. And I think for these AI companies, they don't even know. And there's no reason they should know. Nobody knows. Yeah. So I think we're all figuring it out as we go.
I think this is an interesting distinction, though. There are standards once the market has matured, that when people are twisting and turning those standards around, you start questioning what's going on there. And sometimes it's ridiculous things, and sometimes it's nefarious. But I think there's also moments where there's a platform shift in which we actually have to come up with new standards and a new understanding, because these companies are different by nature. And so if that's the case, it won't just be that their culture is different. It won't just be that the pace at which they can scale is different. It'll also be that, what revenue looks like for these companies and how they think about churn, what good churn looks like, what good gross margins look like. All of that will evolve. And I think it becomes very dangerous when you try to take the standards of the old market and judge companies by those standards now. And because we're in this early period, there are no new standards. So there are a lot of question marks and old standards, and it creates a very confusing dynamic. And I'm sure it's very confusing for investors and for those founders, right? Like there's nothing they can really point to right now.
Well, it's very interesting, the misaligned incentives, because this speaks to the problem with companies not going public in general, because there's just much less of a forcing function to mark. Who wants to tell anybody that XYZ company is that's not good ARR? Who has an incentive to do that? The people with the incentives are all the private capital investors that have paid a pretty penny to be part of, the cap table of these companies. And they have absolutely zero incentive to force these companies to reveal anything or to disclose anything. The only body, it doesn't mean that these companies are lying at all, but it does mean that the underwriting process to go public is a pretty rigorous mechanism that can typically help us all understand how to understand these businesses. And if every company is staying private for 10 years, there's just going to be that much more obscurity on what good looks like in truth, because we can all listen to, and the reason I'm pointing this out is because, and this is why this podcast is important in your arsenal of podcasts, dear listener, because we are operators and we're not necessarily exclusively investors. We make private investments, I'm sure, but this isn't a bunch of VCs where we are talking our book about how XYZ company went from 0 to 100 or 0 for 200. You have to understand those people have absolutely no incentive to ever say that these companies aren't doing what they're doing, because they're all invested in them and they're all invested in the AI wave. And it's in nobody's best interest to say, what is the actual quality of this revenue?
Yeah. This kind of speaks to one of the other things we wanted to discuss. The incentives across the ecosystem are evolving. And we saw, most people that listen to this probably were keeping an eye on the talent war going on between Meta and OpenAI. And the first data point we got were these comp packages that we'd never seen in tech before. We've never in tech seen many ICs being hired with $100 million sign-on bonus and then $100 million a year cash comp. It just was never a thing before. And then those were the packages that Meta was offering. And so that was one data point. And then On the other side, there was some information that came out yesterday around OpenAI stock-based comp, which has jumped 5x last year to 4.4 billion, meaning that they paid out 119% of total revenue in stock comp. And they were projecting it to go down because it was crazy high. But now they're having to compete with OpenAI and with Meta. And so this is going to have to go up further. And when you compare this to companies of previous eras, Google, when they went public, their stock-based comp was only 16% of their revenue. For Facebook, it was 6. And so it opens up a lot of questions around the talent market that we've spoken a bit about the talent market right now. But Sam, when you hear this, what do you think this is telling us about the world we're in and the world we're going to be in a year from now, 2 years from now?
I have a lot of soulful thoughts, as they say, Asad. I think first, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I think the winners and the losers in this world are going to be more pronounced, and there's going to be a greater disparity between people that can take advantage of this moment and people that can't. And I think that the people that can take advantage of this moment in many different forms have significant pricing power and significant quote unquote equity value that maybe they didn't have 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. That's one thing I think. The second thing I think is that because people believe there's two pieces that are happening. One of them is people believe these markets are going to grow so much bigger. And then the question is, to the point of the second, is like, well, what's going to drive market growth? Is it productivity per person, or is it the number of people? Which is why I come back to human population and how we, Western democracies are below replacement rate, because it does imply a productivity growth on a scale that I personally can't contemplate. If we're not going to add more humans as buyers of all of these products, then we're going to need each person to represent significantly more purchasing power to justify the market caps of these businesses. I don't know the answer to that, but I think that it's a fascinating premise that humans, maybe each person can become 10 times more productive and consume 10 times more resources than we did in the past. And I don't mean that from an environmental perspective. I mean that from an economic perspective. That would be really interesting. That would be cool. And that could be something that could stave off, the rising interest rates and sort of the counterflationary pressures that we have as a function of our national debt and really global debt. That's what I think of. But I think bottom line is that the talented people are going to be richly rewarded. And it's not just AI researchers. It's also the Brandon Smiths of the world and the Josh Carters of the world and the Kyle Nortons of the world and all of us, to the extent that we can lean in and adopt some of these ideas to propel ourselves forward.
AJ, let me give you a data point. So we're doing this search for an AI company that's at about 100 million in ARR, and it's for a CRO. And they had this great preference for New York. And so we were mapping this market out. And when we looked at people that would be relevant for that role, for a company at that stage, and this company is very open in terms of the type of thing that this person has sold before. So they're not saying we need them from our space. They can kind of be from all sorts of spaces. Once we looked at who could do this job and who is really good, in all of New York, there were only 13 people right now that you could look at. 13 people. And New York's the second biggest tech hub. In San Fran, there were less than 30.
Yeah.
And that tells you that there's going to be, if it's all about demand and supply, people with the right skills, and they're going to be few and far between, they're going to command premiums in different areas. Would you agree with that, or do you have a different view on this?
I mean, if you're at 100 million in revenue, to Sam's point, you have the capital to make that push. You're a different level. I think that they will, I'm sure, working with you, hire one of those 13 people.
Yeah.
And I think that's just that's the opportunity that they need to find. I mean, to me, what that says is they hired the right firm to go find those 13 people. Now it's on them to tell the right story of why they need to go join
do you think
their organization.
That people that if the numbers are so sparse, right? Like there's handfuls of people that are really, really good right now with cutting edge skills. Then let's say a VP of sales joining a Series A company would generally command 1% equity vested over 4 years. Do you see those numbers jumping up? Like, do you see that becoming 2, 3, 4%? Or do you see what's happening is it'll still be 1%, but if you join the right company, that 1% will become much larger, much faster because of the pace that these companies are moving at.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know, I have a few friends that are in like the cloud compute, like call it like the CoreWeave competitive places. And what happened on their stock options is they changed to RSUs. So they feel like they were real owned. So you didn't you didn't have this situation where you were just not phantom stock because it's real stock. They really felt like it was materially there where stock options aren't. And so I think that that's kind of shifted it over. You know, the other thing I'll say, Asad, and it's specifically to Meta, they're going after AI researchers. I want to be clear, AI researchers and AI engineers, those are different. Like Zuck is personally reaching out to AI researchers. There are 3 or 4 of those in the world. And so this $100 million fund that we're talking about, yes, it's significant and it's making a lot of noise, but that's what Zuck is actually pretty good at. You think about metaverse, there was a ton of noise. How much did they spend? Billions and billions of dollars for metaverse to be a thing. And I appreciate Zuck's conviction, but what was the difference between why metaverse failed and why maybe it was too early, but why others will rise is because it's just like the actual organization needs to come up from the grassroots and be that thing. So I don't think money alone just puts Facebook in the driver's seat for this. And I'm not even sure what this is, because at the end of the day, it's the OpenAI versus Meta. Who are we choosing when it comes to LLMs and models right now? Well, it's
imagine if you're one of these AI researchers though, and maybe they were already wealthy, but like, you know, you start day one and then like 2 weeks into your time at Facebook and you like check your pay, you're like, hey, your pay stub's ready.
Well,
Sam, the 100 million is a sign-on.
I know. So it's like there's now $48 million in your bank account. You're like, cool. All right, great.
Let me go shopping today. Day off, please.
I have a close friend that is a financial advisor, and he's an advisor to one of OpenAI's very, very early engineers, employees. And I was asking him about this, and he said this person's pretty much retired. Has been retired, and he is just the strangest human being that he's ever met. So I think a lot of these are just like their IQ is off the charts, but they operate on a totally different level than I can fathom anyway.
I'm just super curious to see, because what you said that was really correct is that the reason for these comp packages is because there's a handful of people that are really this good, that can help you come in and find that breakthrough that allows us to build a model that is 2 or 3 or 4 times better than the ones we have. That's the game, right? Like all of them want to be the first to build a model that is leaps and bounds better than the best model that we have today. So if the best model is O3 Pro, I want something 5 times better than that. And that would be game changing for the world. And whoever gets there first, turns out these aren't the fastest commoditizing things on earth, because OpenAI's lead over the others has maintained quite a lot. And so it's like, okay, now you got to invest in actually coming up with the thing. And there's just very few people that can do it. It'll be interesting to see if that is also the case for other functions over the next 2 years, or it just stays within this researcher group. That's going to be the most interesting question over, I think, the next 24 months. Do you see CROs, and do you see other people in other functions? Okay.
That was our show.
That was the show.
That was it. I'm
Shout
mostly
out, question of the day. Should we
Yes.
wrap up in any particular way?
Of course. We should do shout outs today. We didn't do shout outs last time, so we'll alternate.
Okay.
I'll start because you're going to say my name anyway to start first anyway. And I'm going to give a shout out to a person I've given a shout out to many times on the show, Ryan Milligan, but for a really great reason. Ryan just had, him and his wife, Katie, just had their second child. And so born yesterday, and he announced it to QuotaPath. So I feel like I'm okay talking about it, but yeah, congrats to Ryan, and he's taking a few weeks off. But the congratulations is really the timing of the birth was perfect, because he had just finished the board deck right before his wife went into labor. So thank you to his newborn for that. Appreciate that. But yeah, shout out to Ryan.
Ryan looks so young. He's father of 2 kids.
Yeah, I think he's your age.
Is he?
I don't
Ryan
know.
has
I don't
baby
know.
face then.
Well, I don't know if he's 24 or 25 by the apps. If he had some help out, but yeah, Ryan's a young guy. He's absolutely crushing it, and will continue to crush it with us.
Brilliant.
When he comes back.
I'll go next, Sam. You can wrap it up. I've been looking at the Twitter media space a lot because it's really fast. X media space. It's really interesting how there are now media companies that are primarily focused on that platform for their entire distribution. Like they don't care about the other platforms at all. They're built natively for this platform. And that gives them an ability to become very integrated within that community and then think of distribution and content formulas for that industry. And I think this is really interesting. Obviously, TBPN is one that's doing a really good job at this. But as I went down the rabbit hole, there are some podcasts that you see most that are built for it, and they're just really good. Like there's this lady who's doing a podcast called Sorcery, and I think it's available in other places, but she's built it for ads. It is really, really good. Really thoughtful interviews with capital allocators, with founders. Her interview with the Cluely guy was great. With the investors was great. And so I don't know who the shout out to her. I think her name is Molly. But also, I think people that are trying to evolve their skills for this new world, you do have to spend time there. And as annoying as it can be, like over the weekend, it would have been super annoying because there's a bunch of annoying stuff that was happening there. But you do have to kind of block that out and say, fine, there'll be a bunch of noise and a bunch of annoyance that I will gain from being there. But that's also where I'll find ways to use this technology that are just weeks ahead of everybody else or all the other platforms. And so I think you have to go there. So shout out to her and public service.
Shout out
message.
to X. Shout out to a platform many said was dead. And a bunch of annoying people went to Threads and the rest of us stayed on X. And it's far more interesting.
Blue sky, baby.
I'm going to give a shout out to the growth team at Pavilion. Spencer Stabler, Marshawn Dalton, Brian Elsesser, Aaron Leader. You all, they crushed the first half of the year and they specifically crushed Q2. I think we were 130% to target on a number of different revenue streams and set up really well for the second half of the year.
That's cool.
And
we were 100% GRR for those that renewed their Pavilion.
That's true. That's true for the ones that we wanted to, for the ones that were nice to. The kindness adjusted GRR is 100%.
Kindness adjusted.
All right, y'all. Thanks so much for listening to episode 117 and join us again next week. We'll be here. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Topline. New episodes come out every Sunday. If you like what you heard today, subscribe so you never miss an episode, leave a 5-star review, and share it with your friends. Don't forget to join our Topline Slack channel to connect with us and discuss the topics we cover with other listeners. Click the link in the show notes. Lastly, if you're interested in joining Pavilion, you can learn more about membership at joinpavilion.com/membership. Thanks again for listening.